If I hadn't walked in late that day, I never would have heard her whisper the words that shattered my trust, my heart, and everything I thought I knew about my own family. I remember that morning with painful clarity, the kind of clarity that only comes when life is about to twist in a direction you never imagined. I woke up early, brewed my tea, and stood by the window, thinking about how quiet the house had become. My son had been distant, distracted, always tired. And my daughter-in-law, polite, yes, but colder than before, as if something or someone else consumed her thoughts. So when my son invited me to lunch, my heart warmed. A simple meal, a small moment of family, something I had been silently craving. But life rarely moves gently. Just as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed with a work call, one I couldn't ignore. 10 minutes turned into 20. Then traffic hit. A jam so thick it felt like the entire city had stopped moving. I kept checking the time, gripping the steering wheel tighter with every passing minute. I sent him message after message. Beta, I'm so sorry. Give me a little more time. I'm coming. His replies stayed warm, patient, like always. But in my chest, something uneasy stirred. A mother's intuition is rarely wrong. By the time I reached the restaurant, the sun was leaning west, casting long amber threads through the glass windows. The place smelled of fresh herbs and warm bread. A soft melody played somewhere in the background. People laughed, plates clinked, life moved on, unaware that mine was about to split open. I walked in, scanning for my son, but instead of finding him, my eyes landed on her, my daughter-in-law, sitting alone at our table. A half-empty glass of lemonade in front of her, her shoulders slightly hunched, her fingers tapping anxiously beside her phone. I slowed down instinctively, not because I intended to eavesdrop, but because something about her posture looked secretive, hidden, uneasy. I took one more quiet step. Her phone was pressed to her ear, her voice low, trembling, as if she feared being overheard. And then, like fate positioning me exactly where I wasn't supposed to be, she spoke the sentence that made my breath stop mid-air. No, he still doesn't know. I'm keeping up the act. My hand froze on the back of the chair beside me. Her tone wasn't confused. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't the voice of someone talking about a misunderstanding or an argument. It was calm, calculated, practiced. I felt my heartbeat crawl up my throat. She continued, voice steadying as if rehearsed many times before. Yes, no one will notice. I just have to pretend a while longer, until everything is finalized. Once I get the inheritance, things will change. Inheritance. That word echoed inside my skull like a painful bell, a word heavy enough to suffocate. My legs started trembling, not from fear, but from disbelief. This was the woman my son trusted blindly, the woman who smiled sweetly at family dinners, the woman who held his hand like he was her world. Pretending? For money? I forced myself not to react, not to gasp, not to collapse where I stood. Then came the final blow, the softest, cruelest whisper of all. I love you, Please be patient. Soon. Not to my son, someone else. And in that moment, I felt something inside me, something delicate, something motherly, something hopeful, break into 1,000 jagged pieces. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe. Because I suddenly understood. I hadn't arrived late. I had arrived at the exact second fate wanted me to. Not for lunch, but for the truth that would change everything. For a moment, I genuinely thought the world had stopped moving. It's strange how betrayal feels. Not loud, not explosive, not like those dramatic scenes you see in movies. It feels quiet, painfully, disturbingly quiet, like a room where someone suddenly turned off all the sound. That was the quiet I stood in as I watched my daughter-in-law, someone I once defended, protected, praised, tilt her head and whisper into her phone with the softness of a woman who had practiced these lies far too often. I stood there, half hidden behind a wooden pillar near the entrance, my fingers gripping it so tightly my knuckles turned white. The noise of the restaurant faded, the clinking plates, the laughter, the waiters rushing from table to table. It all blurred into the background like an out-of-focus photograph. But her voice was sharp enough to slice through bone. "Yeah, he still thinks I'm trying," she murmured, twirling her straw between her fingers, as if she were talking about something casual, like grocery lists or errands. "He doesn't suspect a thing. I'm sweet, I'm supportive, I'm the perfect wife, until the papers go through." I felt my heartbeat thud painfully against my chest. Papers? Inheritance? Pretending? My mind scrambled to catch up, flipping through every memory, every conversation, every tiny moment I'd brushed off as nothing. The forced smiles, the sudden mood swings, the excuses, the way she stopped calling me Mom and switched to my first name, the way she began pushing my son away from family events, always claiming they had other plans. Maybe these weren't random behaviors. Maybe they were pieces of a puzzle I refused to see. I swallowed hard, so hard it felt like glass. For years I told my son, "She's stressed. She's young. Marriage takes time. Give her room." I defended her like she was my own child. But that tenderness suddenly felt stupid, blind, naive. She shifted in her seat, lowering her voice even more, almost trembling with excitement or nerves. I couldn't tell which. No, don't worry," she breathed. "Once the inheritance is sorted, we'll have what we need. I'll join you. I promise. Just a little longer." A subtle smile tugged at her lips. A secret smile. A smile she never used with my son. The pain in my chest spread like a slow burning flame. A part of me wanted to storm up to her, flip the table, scream every question that clawed inside me. Who is he? How long? Why pretend? Why hurt my son? A part of me older, wiser, shaped by a lifetime of storms, told me to stay still, to observe, to think. Sometimes silence is more powerful than confrontation. So I let myself sink into that stillness. The kind of stillness where your emotions don't know whether they want to cry, collapse, or erupt. My phone buzzed in my purse. I flinched, heart jumping into my throat. It was my son. "Mom, I'm on my way, running late. Don't worry." My stomach twisted. He had no idea, no clue what world-changing truth he was walking toward. I watched her as she took a deep breath and finally ended the call. Her fingers lingered over the screen, hesitating, as if she wanted to send one last message to the person on the other side. Someone who clearly wasn't her husband. She tucked her phone into her purse and pushed her hair behind her ear. And then, in the most painful twist of irony, she smiled to herself, softly, proudly, like a woman who believed everything was going exactly according to plan. She had no idea I was there, no idea I had heard every word, no idea that I wasn't late, but right on time. My legs felt weak as I finally stepped forward. Not to confront her, not yet, but to take my seat quietly at the far end of the restaurant, where she wouldn't see me. My hands trembled as I wrapped them around a glass of water, but my mind grew sharper, clearer, steadier with every passing second. If she was pretending, then I would pretend too. If she had a plan, then I would make a bigger one. If she thought she could fool my son indefinitely, she was about to learn how wrong she was. Because the truth wasn't just something I heard. It was something I now carried. Something I would use. Something that would change everything. I glanced at her again, watching her scroll through her messages with a secret grin on her face. And in that moment, a thought settled into me, cold, calm, and unshakable. This wasn't the end of anything. This was the beginning. I sat there, hidden behind a tall fern plant at the far corner of the restaurant, trying to steady my breathing. My heart was pounding like I had just run up 3 flights of stairs, even though I hadn't moved more than 30 steps since I walked in. It's strange how the air around you changes when you hear something you were never meant to hear. The world feels tilted. Straight lines look crooked. Colors look washed out. Your own heartbeat becomes the loudest thing in the room. I watched her take another sip of her iced tea. Calm, collected, completely unaware that the foundation of her pretty little secret had just cracked in half. I couldn't stop staring at her hands. Perfect nails, shiny rings, a thin gold bracelet that my son gifted her last year when she said she lost her old one. But now, as I watched her jewelry didn't look elegant. It looked heavy, like the weight of all the lies she had been carrying. My chest tightened again. This wasn't some stranger. This was the woman who used to hug me on holidays, bring me flowers on Mother's Day, sit beside me on the couch and ask for recipes, like she actually cared. How long had it all been an act? I pressed my fingertips to the side of my glass, feeling the condensation gather on my skin. It grounded me, kept me from floating into panic. A waiter passed by my table. "Ma'am, can I get you anything? You look pale." I forced a small smile. "Just water is fine, sweetheart." He nodded and walked away, unaware that he had just interrupted one of the biggest emotional earthquakes of my life. I kept my head lowered, pretending to study the menu while actually watching her reflection in the glass divider near her table. She kept checking the time, glancing toward the door, her foot tapping with that jittery energy guilt sometimes brings. But the moment she spotted my son walking across the street toward the restaurant, she sat up straighter, adjusted her hair, and softened her face into the sweetest expression a wife could wear. And right there, that transformation hit me harder than anything she said on that phone call. Her smile wasn't genuine. It was rehearsed, practiced. A smile with steps, like a dance she'd learned by heart. I whispered to myself, "Oh, honey, he has no idea." My son walked in, cheerful, a little out of breath, wiping sweat from his forehead. "There you are," she said sweetly, her voice suddenly dripping with affection, the same way honey drips from a spoon, slow but sticky. He kissed the top of her head and sat beside her. They talked. They laughed. She held his hand across the table like she was holding something fragile. But I knew better now. Fragile wasn't her style. Calculated was. I felt anger, but not the rage-filled, explosive kind. No, it was quiet, controlled. The kind of anger only a mother could feel when someone she loves is being played for a fool. I leaned back in my seat, letting my thoughts spill into place like puzzle pieces clicking together. She wasn't just cheating emotionally. He was planning something, waiting for papers, waiting for inheritance. Mine? My son's? A joint family asset? It didn't matter which one. A woman willing to lie so easily was a woman capable of taking everything. And that's when a memory surfaced, one I'd forgotten until that moment. Last month, she insisted I show her some of the old documents, property papers, savings info, family files. She said she wanted to organize things. Had that been another piece of her act? The realization hit me like cold water. She was preparing, calculating, putting things in position, waiting for the right moment to strike. And my poor boy. He was too blinded by love to see the trap being built, brick by brick, around him. I felt a pulse of fear deep in my stomach. Fear for him. Fear for our family. Fear for what she was planning next. But along with that fear came something stronger. Resolve. A mother doesn't need weapons. A mother doesn't need evidence. A mother doesn't need permission to protect her child. All she needs is a moment. A moment to listen, a moment to think, a moment to act. And I had already gotten the first two. Now it was time for the third. But not today. Today, I would watch, study, pretend I hadn't heard a thing. Because the most powerful person in any story is the one who knows the truth while everyone else is still living the lie. And right now, that person was me. I don't think I moved for a solid 5 minutes, not even to blink properly. I just sat in that shadowy corner of the restaurant, watching them through the thin gap between two tall decorative plants. The leaves created a blurry frame around the scene, like I was watching someone else's life through an old window. My son looked so happy, so casual, so unaware. He kept rubbing his forehead the way he always does when he's nervous or late, apologizing to her like she was the victim of some great inconvenience. He said, "Sorry, babe. I got held up with those reports. You okay?" She placed a hand over his arm with the gentleness of a polished actress. "Of course, sweetheart. I was just waiting for you." Waiting. That word tasted bitter after what I'd heard. My son continued talking, explaining his busy morning, how his boss dumped extra work on him last minute. But he still rushed here because he didn't want her eating alone. My throat tightened painfully. He adored her. Every cell in his body believed in her. And she She didn't even hesitate to fake affection. I watched her carefully. That same woman who whispered to someone else just minutes ago, "I love you soon." That same woman now leaned into my son's shoulder, gently adjusting his collar, brushing invisible dust off his shirt like the perfect wife. Her body language was flawless, too flawless. Her smile curved at the right moments. Her eyes softened exactly on cue. She even tilted her head the way women do in romance movies, just enough to appear warm, but not clingy. If I hadn't heard her real voice earlier, I would have believed it too. A harsh truth settled over me like a cold blanket. Some people don't pretend accidentally. Some people train for it. I felt something deep in my bones. That old, instinctive sense women get when something isn't right. The same instinct I used to rely on when raising my son alone during the tough years. The same instinct that guided me through heartbreak, loneliness, and sudden storms life threw at me. That instinct whispered, "She's dangerous." I shifted slightly in my chair, the leather squeaking softly beneath me. I froze, praying she didn't hear it. But she was too wrapped up in her performance to notice. He always tries to make her feel taken care of. He said, "Get whatever you want, baby. You've been stressed. You deserve it." I felt my jaw clench. Stressed? If only he knew what she was busy with. If only he knew who she was calling love. When the waiter left, she placed her chin in her hand, gazing at him with soft eyes. "So, did you talk to your mom today? You said she's been asking about that paperwork again." My blood ran cold. That paperwork. That paperwork. The one involving property adjustments, joint family ownership, my will, his inheritance structure. She'd been the one encouraging him to settle things early, make sure everything is in order, protect the future. Now it all made sense. My chest rose and fell slowly, trying to keep the anger from tightening my lungs. I had to stay calm. I couldn't afford to lose focus. My son smiled shyly, shrugging. "I haven't brought it up yet. I don't want to rush her." And then she let out that soft, disappointed sigh. "Oh, I mean, it's fine, but it would really help us, just to have everything set." My son nodded, unaware of the manipulation curling around her words like smoke. I closed my eyes for a second, pressing my palm against my chest. I could hear my pulse again, steady but heavy, like distant thunder. I wasn't just listening to a liar. I was listening to a strategist, a woman pretending to be perfect until her goal was complete. Slowly, I opened my eyes again, watching the two of them. Their food arrived. Forks clicked softly against plates. They talked as if their world was normal, unbroken, untouched, but mine wasn't. I sat there, watching a marriage built on illusions, a love story wrapped in lies, a meal soaked in secrets too heavy for the air around it. And the strangest part? I didn't feel the urge to confront her anymore. Not angrily, not loudly, not impulsively. No, the pain had already burned through me. Now only clarity remained. I realized something powerful in that moment. A person who lies so smoothly never expects to be outplayed. and she definitely wasn't expecting me. She didn't know I'd heard everything. She didn't know I had connected the dots. She didn't know I had been pushed to the very edge of trust. But she would know soon. Not through shouting, not through drama, not through a scene, but through something far more piercing. A plan, a letter, a truth she wouldn't be able to shake off. As I watched her laugh at a joke my son made, a laugh that suddenly sounded hollow, I whispered silently to myself, "Enjoy your performance today, sweetheart, because soon the curtains are going to fall." I slipped out of the restaurant as quietly as a shadow. The sunlight outside felt too bright, too harsh, like the world didn't realize something inside me had shattered. When I finally reached my car, I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat behind the wheel, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face looked older, not in years, but in grief. My hands trembled on my lap until I clasped them together tightly, forcing them to stop. The betrayal had shaken something deep inside me. Something I didn't even know could still break at this age. But as the seconds passed, my breath slowly steadied. My thoughts kept circling back to one thing. My son wasn't the enemy, but he was lost, and she had been the one leading him. The more I thought about it, the more memories resurfaced, tiny moments that I had brushed aside over the years. Moments that now burned with new meaning. Like the time Victoria suggested I, quote, reduce stress and let them handle my bills. Or when she insisted on setting up online banking for convenience and quietly took notes of all my logins. Or the day she accidentally mentioned an expensive trip she wanted, then quickly dismissed it, only for my son to surprise her with tickets a week later. Small things, isolated things, things that didn't seem dangerous at the time. But now, they formed a pattern so clear it was suffocating. By the time I reached home, my heartbeat had settled into a steady, sharp rhythm, like a drum, fueling determination instead of fear. When I stepped inside, my house felt unfamiliar. Every picture on the wall, every piece of furniture, every quiet corner whispered. She wanted all of this. I locked the door, pressing my back against it for a moment. The silence here wasn't comforting like it used to be. It felt hollow. As I walked into the living room, I noticed the family photo on the mantel, the one taken 2 Christmases ago. Benjamin smiling brightly, Victoria clinging to his arm, me standing beside them with a knitted red sweater I had made myself. Victoria's smile in that picture had always felt genuine. Now, staring at it, I saw the truth. It wasn't joy. It was satisfaction. The satisfaction of someone who believed her game was working. I picked up the frame slowly, running my thumb over my son's cheek in the photo. My eyes softened. "My sweet boy," I whispered. "You don't even know what's happening to you." I wasn't angry at him. I wasn't disappointed either. I was scared for him. Scared of what kind of heartbreak awaited him when the truth surfaced. Scared of what this woman would do next. Scared of how far she was willing to go. I placed the frame back, careful, almost ritualistically, and sat down on the couch. The weight of everything settled on me again. Victoria's voice echoed in my mind. I'm just faking it until I get the inheritance. He believes everything I tell him. When we have everything secured, we'll leave together. Leave. Leave together. Take everything and disappear. Period. The idea made my stomach twist painfully. I clenched my hands together to stop them from shaking again. I needed a clear head. I needed to be stronger than the panic trying to claw its way into me. So I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and made myself tea. The routine, the familiar motions, the simple warmth helped ground me. As I sat at the table with the steaming cup between my palms, a realization hit me, one that changed the entire direction of my thoughts. Victoria wasn't just stealing money. She was stealing my son's life, his trust, his future, his sense of family. The financial loss would hurt, yes, but losing him emotionally, that would destroy me. I couldn't let that happen. Not now, not ever. So I pulled out a small notebook, the kind I used years ago to plan business strategies, and opened it to a blank page. At the top, in slow, deliberate handwriting, I wrote, Victoria, investigation notes. And then the floodgates opened. Memory after memory, detail after detail, fact after fact poured out of me as I wrote. Her strange comments, her sudden interest in my finances, her insistence on gaining access to things that didn't concern her, her controlling behavior toward Benjamin, her flawlessly timed affection, her phone call, her lover, her plan. By the time I was done, nearly 4 pages were filled. I leaned back in the chair and stared at my handwriting. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a system, a method, a deliberate, calculated scheme built slowly over years. And I had been asleep the whole time. But not anymore. A small spark ignited inside me, quiet but powerful. The kind of spark that appears only when a woman has had enough. I set the notebook aside, took a slow sip of tea, and let the warmth run through me like courage. Tomorrow, I would call someone I trusted. Tomorrow, I would begin the real fight. Tomorrow, Victoria's perfect mask would start to crack. But tonight, I allowed myself one final moment of quiet. One breath, one tear that rolled down my cheek silently. Because tomorrow, Eleanor was no longer going to be the trusting, gentle mother-in-law Victoria thought she could fool. Tomorrow, I would be something else entirely. The night felt unusually long. I didn't sleep, not even for a moment. I tried. God knows I tried. I lay down, closed my eyes, pulled the blanket around me, but my mind refused to quiet. It kept replaying her voice over and over, like a poisoned echo. He's stupidly easy to manipulate. And she's gone, everything becomes ours. Just keep faking it. The words crawled under my skin like ice. By 3 a.m, I had given up on sleep entirely. I got out of bed, wrapped a shawl around my shoulders, and walked into the hallway. The house was dark. Too dark. It felt like even the walls were holding their breath. I paused near Benjamin's old bedroom door. It was closed now, unused for years, but the memories behind it still pulsed like a heartbeat. I placed my hand on the door frame, my thumb brushing the familiar groove where he once carved a small dent with his toy screwdriver. He was 6 years old, proud of himself, showing it off like he'd created a masterpiece. I smiled faintly, a tired smile, a broken one. He was such a good boy, I whispered into the quiet. How did it come to this? How did he end up in the arms of someone who saw him as nothing more than a stepping stone? I stepped away before the grief could swallow me whole. Back in the living room, I turned on only the small lamp beside the couch. A soft pool of yellow light spread across the room, gentle against the darkness. I opened the notebook from earlier and began reading through the pages I had written. Each line felt heavier now, more real, more dangerous. At the bottom of the 4th page, I added a new note. Tomorrow, call attorney. Call Clara. Clara. Just thinking her name brought a sense of steadiness to my chest. She wasn't just my friend. She had been my anchor during the hardest years of my life. 20 years of trust. 20 years of honesty. The kind of person who told you the truth even when it hurt. And she had never liked Victoria. Not from the beginning. I still remembered the day Clara met her for the first time. Afterward, she pulled me aside and whispered, "Eleanor, something about that girl feels off." There's no warmth behind her smile. I had brushed it away back then. I regretted that now more than anything. The clock hit 6:50 a.m. before I realized how long I had been sitting there. Morning light slowly seeped through the curtains, soft but cold. I stood, stretched my stiff shoulders, and made myself breakfast, a small slice of toast and a boiled egg. But the food tasted like nothing. I ate only enough to keep my body functioning. By 8 o'clock in the morning, I picked up the phone and dialed Clara. She answered on the 2nd ring. "Eleanor, are you all right? You're calling early." Her voice, the familiar warmth, made my throat tighten unexpectedly. Clara, I need your help," I said softly. A pause. A gentle inhale. Then her tone shifted instantly, like a protective shield snapping into place. "What happened?" "It's about Victoria." My voice cracked before I could stop it. "And Benjamin." Another long silence followed. But this one wasn't confusion. It was understanding. "Tell me everything," she said firmly. So I did. Not rushed, not emotional, just steady, deliberate detail. Every word I had overheard, every memory I had realized too late, every instinct finally awakening. Clara didn't interrupt once. When I finished, the line was quiet for a few moments. Then she spoke, low and serious. "Eleanor, this is not something you handle alone anymore." "I know," I whispered. "We'll take this step by step. I'm coming over in an hour. And before that, I'm calling someone who can help us." "Who?" "You'll see. But trust me, it's someone we need." Her certainty felt like a warm coat draped over my shoulders. "Thank you," I breathed. "You don't thank me," she replied gently. "You just hold on. I'll be there soon." We hung up. I exhaled shakily and placed the phone down. For the first time since the restaurant, I felt something new. Not fear, not heartbreak. Momentum. The beginning of a shift. I looked around my quiet living room, my home, my safe place. Victoria had no idea what was coming. She didn't know the storm she had awakened. And as I poured myself another cup of tea, the sunlight finally breaking through the window, I felt it in my bones. Today was the day I began to take my life back. Today was the day her plans started to unravel. The house was silent again after I ended the call with Clara. But this time, it wasn't the suffocating silence from before. This one felt like the pause before a storm finally breaks. I sat on the couch, tea cooling in my hands, watching the light crawl across the floor as morning fully claimed the room. Every minute felt longer than the last. I kept glancing at the clock. 8:12, 8:16, 8:23. I told myself to breathe. My mind wandered, uninvited, back to the restaurant yesterday. The sound of her voice, the softness she used, but not for my son, not for anyone who mattered. No one will ever know. The sentence played again, clear as if she were whispering it into my ear right now. My jaw tightened. For years, I tried to believe she simply didn't like me. I tried to excuse the little cruelties, the passive-aggressive comments. The way she always inserted herself between me and Benjamin, like a polished shield made of ice. But now I knew the truth. She wasn't cold. She wasn't distant. She wasn't insecure. She was calculating. Every sweet smile, fake. Every thoughtful gesture, performed. Every "Mom, let me help you," scripted. For a moment, my hands trembled around the cup. I placed it down before it shattered. At 9:01 a.m. exactly, the doorbell rang. My heart jumped. Clara. I smoothed my hair, steadied myself, and opened the door. And there she was. Same soft eyes, same firm expression she wore whenever something serious was happening. She stepped inside immediately and pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than usual. "Let me look at you," she said, holding my arms. "You didn't sleep." "No," I admitted. "I didn't expect you to." She sighed gently. "I brought something." I frowned slightly, but before I could ask what, she stepped aside. Behind her stood a man, tall, calm-faced, not intimidating, but serious in a quiet, steady way. He carried a laptop bag and a small notebook. Clara placed a hand on my shoulder. "This is Daniel," she said softly. "He works with family legal affairs. Very confidential. Very professional. And don't worry, he owes me more favors than I can count." The man gave a small, respectful nod. "Mrs. Hale." "Clara told me you're dealing with something delicate. I'm here only if you want me to be." My throat tightened, but I forced my voice steady. "Yes, I think I do." We moved to the living room. Clara took her usual chair, but Daniel did not sit until I did. Something about that respect made me trust him a little more instantly. He opened his notebook. "Clara gave me a summary," he said, "but I want to hear it in your own words. Take your time." So I told them. Again. This time slower. More carefully. I recited everything I had heard at the restaurant. Every tone, every word, every detail still sharp like a fresh wound. Daniel didn't interrupt. He didn't even blink too often. He just listened. When I finished, the room felt heavy. He finally spoke. "Mrs. Hale, this is not just manipulation. What your daughter-in-law described, pretending until she gets the inheritance, that is intentional deception, calculated, and depending on what else she has done, it could be far more serious than you think. I swallowed hard. Clara leaned forward. I told you, she said gently. This wasn't your imagination. She isn't just cold. She has a goal. My voice barely escaped. And that goal is Benjamin's money? Daniel shook his head once. Not just the money. The air stilled. What do you mean? I whispered. He looked at me with a softness I didn't expect. People like her don't just aim for wealth. They aim for control. Control of assets. Control of reputation. Control of things. He paused. And sometimes, control of the person. A cold wave rolled through me. That word, control, fit her too perfectly, like it had always been waiting above our heads. I realized suddenly that the little things she did, choosing Benjamin's clothes, speaking over him, making decisions before he could even answer, were not quirks. They were steps, small, intentional steps. Clara touched my hand. What she said on that phone call, it's confirmation. She's been planning something for a long time. My chest tightened painfully. I whispered, "So what do we do?" Daniel opened his notebook to a fresh page. "We start documenting," he said. "Everything, every conversation, every unusual behavior, every inconsistency. And today, with your permission, I'd like to ask you some very direct questions about their behavior over the past 2 years." 2 years. My breath caught. 2 years. That was exactly how long they'd been married. I nodded slowly. Ask anything. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Hale, have you ever seen signs that your son pulls away from you more than he used to?" Pain shot through my chest, but I answered honestly, "Yes." "And did she encourage that distance, even subtly?" I hesitated. "Then, yes, many times." Clara reached for a pen on the table and scribbled something on a pad. Daniel continued. "Has she ever tried to exclude you from family decisions or financial discussions?" Yes. "And has your son's personality changed since being with her, even slightly?" My hand rested against my heart. Benjamin used to laugh with his whole face. Now he only smiled with his lips. Yes, I whispered again. Daniel closed his notebook gently, not abruptly, not dramatically, just gently. "Then we have enough to proceed with caution." Clara looked at me, her eyes soft. "This is the first step," she said, "and you took it." But inside me, something else awakened. Not relief, not just fear. Resolve. Strong, quiet, unmoving. For years I stayed silent. For years I told myself it wasn't my place. But now it was my place. Because this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about protecting the one person I loved more than life itself, from someone who wore love like a disguise. And I was done being quiet. When Daniel and Clara left that morning, the house fell into another silence. But this time, it wasn't the kind that made me feel small or alone. It felt like the silence right before a verdict, right before a truth steps into the light and demands to be seen. I stood by the window as their car pulled away, my fingers gentle tapping against the glass. The neighborhood was waking up. Joggers passing by, sprinklers turning on, a dog barking at a leaf that had the audacity to move. Life looked normal, but inside my chest, nothing felt normal anymore. I pressed my palm to my heart, letting the rhythm ground me. For years, I watched little signs. The way she moved Benjamin's hand off the menu before he could order. The way she answered questions directed at him. The way she always kept him just a little out of reach, as if intimacy with anyone but her was some sort of crime, pretending until the inheritance. Those words didn't float away as time passed. They dug deeper. They settled into places inside me that had been tender for months, maybe years. I kept replaying everything. The first Thanksgiving she pulled Benjamin away from our family photo. The Christmas she insisted he was too tired to call me. The birthday dinner where she told me, smiling too sweetly, "Maybe you should let us have some space now." Space. The way she said it felt like a velvet rope being placed across my own child. My breath trembled as I walked toward the kitchen, fingertips brushing the counter for balance. The house smelled like morning coffee and lemon wood polish, scents that always reminded me of safety. Funny how safety can exist in a place, even when danger has been sitting right beside you. I poured myself water, drank slowly, and set the glass down. Then I walked to the small drawer near the fridge, the one Benjamin used to rummage through searching for snacks when he was little. I slid it open, fingers brushing through old takeout menus, cracked magnets, and pens that no longer wrote. And there it was, a tiny scrap of paper with his handwriting from years ago. "Mom, be back by 6 p.m. Save some lasagna for me. Love you." I sank onto the kitchen stool, the note shaking in my hands. My sweet, silly boy, the boy who once taped this note because he knew I always teased him for sneaking in late. The boy whose laughter filled this house louder than the storms outside. The boy who now flinched ever so slightly whenever his wife corrected him. I pressed the note to my chest. How did we get here? How did a single phone call flip my world inside out? My reflection stared back at me from the microwave door. Tired eyes, old lines, a strength I didn't know I'd need at this age. But before I could fall too deep into the memories, my phone buzzed on the counter. A message from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before opening it. "Unknown. Mrs. Hale, I need to talk to you. It's important. Please don't tell Madison I reached out." LL? I squinted. There was only one person in her life whose name started with L. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Her brother. The one she always kept at arm's length. The one she only spoke about in vague sentences. The one Benjamin said wasn't really close to her anymore. My pulse thumped in my throat. Another message came before I could respond. Unknown. I know what she said yesterday. I know what you heard. We need to talk in person. My breath caught. How did he know? Was he there? Did she talk to him? Was he the one on that phone call? A third message. Unknown. Please, I'm trying to protect someone too. I steadied myself against the counter. This was shifting faster than I expected, like the ground beneath my feet was moving inch by inch, waiting to see whether I'd fall or plant myself stronger. I typed slowly, "Me, where do you want to meet?" A moment later, "Unknown, I'll come to you, but not now, not with her around. I'll text again tonight." Then nothing. The house grew impossibly quiet. I locked my phone, set it down, and pressed both palms flat on the counter. A strange mix of dread and understanding washed over me. If her own brother was reaching out, if he wanted to meet in secret, if he knew what she was doing, then whatever Madison was hiding, whatever she was planning, whatever she had whispered in that restaurant, was bigger than I imagined. My knees weakened. I pulled out a chair and sat down, staring at the tiled floor as if it held the answers. A soft hum left my chest. "I knew it," I whispered. I didn't want to, but I knew it. I rubbed the corner of Benjamin's old note with my thumb. This wasn't just betrayal of my trust, or my family, or my son. It was betrayal woven into her entire life. Long before she even entered ours, something had been broken inside her for a long time. And now it was reaching toward us. The fridge hummed softly. The clock ticked on the wall, and sunlight edged closer across the kitchen tiles, flooding the room with warm gold. But inside me, something colder woke up. Not fear, not anger. Resolve. Quiet, firm, and unmovable. If her brother wanted to talk tonight, I'd be ready. If she had secrets, I'd find them. If she ever thought she could play with my son's life for inheritance, power, or whatever twisted future she had in mind, she chose the wrong mother to underestimate. I straightened my back, pushing myself up from the chair. The truth was coming, and whether Madison liked it or not, I would be there when it arrived. Evening crept in slowly, the kind of slow that makes every shadow stretch a little longer, and every sound feel louder than it should. My house always felt different at night, warmer in some corners, colder in others, like it remembered more than I ever told it to. I sat in my living room with just one lamp on, the soft yellow glow spreading across the carpet. My fingers curled around a warm mug of chamomile tea, though I hadn't taken more than 2 sips. I wasn't drinking it for comfort, just something to hold so I wouldn't shake. The message from her brother had replayed in my mind all day. I know what she said yesterday. "We need to talk. Please. I'm trying to protect someone too." Protect who? Himself? Benjamin? Someone else she hurt before she set her eyes on my son? My heart thumped painfully. I didn't want to imagine the possibilities, but the human heart has a way of jumping straight to the worst. A clock on the wall ticked toward 7:41 p.m. when my phone finally buzzed. Unknown. I'm outside. My breath caught. I stood slowly, smoothing the wrinkles from my sweater with trembling hands. Through the curtains, I saw a tall, lean figure standing near the mailbox, head down, hands in his pockets, shoulders weighed like he carried years of something he'd never spoken aloud. I opened the door gently. He looked up, and that's when I saw it. The same eyes Madison had, but without the coldness, without the calculation. Just tiredness, and something like regret. "Mrs. Hale?" he asked quietly. "Yes, come in." He stepped inside like he was entering a confession booth. He didn't even sit until I gestured to the couch. His hands shook slightly as he rested them on his knees. "My name is Lucas," he said, voice soft, strained. I wasn't sure you'd actually talk to me." "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. He nodded once, staring at the floor. "I guess I should start by saying I'm not here to make excuses for her." He swallowed. "I'm here because you deserve the truth." A chill slid across my arms. "Go on." He let out a long, haunting exhale, the kind that comes from a place deep in the soul, where memories sit that someone tries to forget. "Madison wasn't always like this," he said softly, "but she learned early in life that the world rewards people who take what they want." I sat very still. She grew up thinking everything was a competition. Attention, affection, money, loyalty. She needed to be the center of everything. And if someone else got it, she saw it as betrayal. My stomach twisted. She started small, lying to teachers, lying to friends, making up stories that put her above everyone else. But as she got older, the lies got bigger, sharper, more dangerous. He rubbed his face with both hands. I tried to keep her grounded. I really did, but she pushed me away. Anyone who saw through her, she kept them as far from her life as possible. My pulse quickened. Was she always manipulative? I asked gently. Lucas hesitated, then nodded. But the worst part wasn't the lying. It was the pretending. My breath trembled. "And what she wants now," I whispered, "is my son's inheritance." Lucas didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, "Mrs. Hale, did she tell your son her real past?" "No." The words slipped out quickly. I didn't even need to think. He closed his eyes briefly. That's what I was afraid of. Silence pressed around us, heavy and close. After a moment, he leaned forward. "She's pretending," his voice cracked. "But not just about the inheritance." Something cold slipped through my veins. "What else?" He looked me right in the eye. "She's not pretending to love someone else, Mrs. Hale." His throat bobbed. "She really does love him." My blood chilled. That phone call. "I'm just pretending until the inheritance. But I love you." It wasn't a flirtation. It wasn't momentary weakness. It wasn't confusion. It was real. A real relationship. A real betrayal. A real plan. Lucas clenched his jaw. "That man, he doesn't know the full truth either. She lies to him just enough to keep him loyal. She plays both sides so she always has somewhere to land." My chest tightened until breathing felt like work. "And my son?" My voice was barely a whisper. "What is he to her?" Lucas's eyes softened, not kindly, but sadly. "He's security," he said quietly. "Money, stability, reputation, a safe life." He paused. "And she'll do anything, anything, to keep it until she gets what she wants." My vision blurred slightly. The room felt smaller. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "And if she thinks you're a threat to that, she'll come for you too." A shiver crawled down my spine. For a moment, neither of us moved. The house felt too still, like it was listening. Then Lucas exhaled shakily. "I didn't come here to scare you. I came because someone has to protect the people she targets. She doesn't stop, not until she wins." The word "wins" made something inside me crack open. He stood slowly. "I can tell you everything," he said, "but only if you want me to. I won't push." I know this is a lot. I rose to my feet too. I felt old, not because of age, but because of how heavy truth can be when it falls all at once. I looked him straight in the eye. "Sit back down," I said quietly. "I want to know everything." Lucas swallowed and nodded slowly, then sat, and as he opened his mouth to speak, something outside made a soft, crunching sound, like a footstep on gravel. Both of us froze. He looked toward the window. I turned my head sharply toward the door. Outside, under the dim porch light, a shadow moved past the edge of the house, a familiar silhouette, a familiar way of walking. My heart dropped into my stomach. Madison. She was home. And if she saw Lucas's car, if she realized he was talking to me, if she suspected anything at all. The porch light hummed faintly, flickering once as if it too sensed something was wrong. Lucas and I stayed frozen, listening, because sometimes silence can scream louder than footsteps. Another faint crunch. Then another. My throat tightened. "She's here," I whispered. Lucas's eyes snapped toward the front door. His jaw tensed. How would she even know? He stopped mid-sentence, because we both realized the same thing at the exact same moment. Madison didn't need to know anything. She just needed to get suspicious. Maybe she noticed my silence today. Maybe she didn't believe the soft excuses I gave over the phone. Maybe she followed her instincts, the same ones she used to prey on people. And maybe those instincts told her something was off. I moved quietly to the window, lifting the curtain just enough with 2 fingers. My breath caught. She wasn't walking. She wasn't even trying to hide. She was standing still on the path leading to my house, her face tilted slightly, eyes fixed on the front door, as if she were waiting for it to open, as if she expected someone inside. A chill raced up my spine. Her hair was pulled back sharply. Her coat fitted perfectly, not a wrinkle in sight. But her expression, God help me, her expression was cold enough to freeze bone. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't curious. She wasn't confused. She looked calculating, like someone measuring the size of the enemy. My pulse hammered. Lucas whispered from behind me, voice taut. "Does she know I'm here?" "I don't know." My voice trembled. "She rarely comes unannounced. She never walks around at night." A long pause. Then he murmured, "She knows something." I let the curtain fall gently back into place. For a moment, I just stood there, pressing a hand to my chest, grounding myself, because my heart felt like it was trying to escape the cage of my ribs. Lucas leaned in close, speaking low, urgent. "If she sees me here, it's over. She'll know I'm talking. She'll move fast. You won't have time to prepare. She's not patient when she feels threatened." I breathed out shakily. "Go out the back," I whispered. "My garden gate leads to the alley behind the street. She won't see you." Lucas nodded, but he hesitated. "You'll be alone with her." "I've lived alone for years," I said softly, "and I'm not afraid of her anymore." That wasn't entirely true. I was afraid. But fear isn't the same as defeat. It never has been. Lucas moved toward the hallway, footsteps careful, controlled. Before turning the corner, he paused and looked at me one last time. "Mrs. Hale." His voice was full of something heavy. something almost like guilt. Whatever she does next, don't let her pull you back into believing her. She can shift personalities in a heartbeat. She'll cry. She'll beg. She'll lie so well you'll question your own memory. I swallowed hard. I won't fall for it, I said. He searched my face, making sure. Then he slipped away silently, disappearing into the back of the house. The moment he left, the house felt bigger, emptier, like all the shadows grew legs. I stood very still. Outside, the footsteps began again. Only this time, they weren't cautious. They were confident, deliberate, coming closer. I walked to the front door slowly, my fingers brushing the table where my keys lay, where my reading glasses rested, where a small framed photo of Benjamin as a little boy smiled up at me. A reminder of why I was doing this. A reminder of what was at stake. A reminder of who I was fighting for. A sharp knock sliced through the silence. Then her voice came, muffled but unmistakable. "Eleanor, are you home?" My blood ran cold. Her tone wasn't sweet. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't the polite voice she used to disguise her true nature. It was neutral, calculated, a blank sheet waiting to turn into whatever expression she needed. I inhaled slowly, straightened my back, and opened the door. Madison stood there, hands folded neatly in front of her, her expression a mask of pleasant concern. Too pleasant. "Eleanor," she said softly, tilting her head, "I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd check on you. You sounded tense earlier." I didn't smile. I didn't invite her in. I didn't pretend. "I'm fine," I said, scanned my face with those sharp eyes, the ones that always felt like they were digging for weakness. "You seem a little shaken." A small, almost invisible smirk touched the corner of her mouth. "Is everything okay?" I almost said yes, almost played along, but something inside me shifted. Something strong, something old, something that had been asleep too long. "No, Madison," I said quietly. "Not everything is okay." Her eyes flickered. Just a split second. Barely noticeable. But it was enough. She knew. She felt it. The shift. The ground beneath her feet, moving for the first time. She softened her lips into a worried frown. "Did something happen? You can talk to me." A lie. So smooth. So automatic. I stared at her without blinking. "Where were you earlier tonight?" I asked. Her smile froze. "Earlier?" "Yes," I said, my voice just as calm as hers. "Around 7 p.m. Where were you?" A tiny pause, barely half a second, but I saw it. Her mind scrambling, choosing a story, editing it, tailoring it. "I was with friends," she said softly. "Just a small get-together." "Why do you ask?" She lied, effortlessly. "As long as you're sure," I murmured. She was afraid. I felt it. She was picking up the scent of danger. My danger. Lucas's danger. Her plan's danger. "I'm going inside now," I said softly. "Good night, Madison." I closed the door slowly. She didn't move. Through the glass, I could see her silhouette, still, rigid, watching the door as if trying to see through it, waiting for weakness, waiting for fear, waiting for the woman I used to be. But I didn't give her any. I waited until her shadow finally faded down the path. Until the night swallowed her whole. Then I locked the door and whispered to myself, the game has changed. Because now, she wasn't just playing for inheritance. She was playing for control, for survival. And I was done being a silent piece on her board. The house didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt alert, like the walls themselves had woken up, suddenly aware that something dangerous had passed through the air a few moments ago. I leaned back against the door, exhaling slowly. My hands were trembling, but not from fear the way they used to tremble. This time, it was adrenaline, awareness, a strange, unfamiliar strength rippling through me. I had confronted her, not directly, but honestly, it didn't matter. Predators don't need full sentences to detect threat. They sense tone. They smell shift. And Madison had smelled it tonight. For the first time since the day she walked into my son's life, she knew she'd lost control of me. I turned away from the entryway and walked into the living room, the dim lamp casting a soft, warm glow that contrasted sharply with the cold unease inside my chest. Madison was walking slowly down the street, each step precise, like she was thinking deeply about what just happened. But her posture, her shoulders stiff, her head held lower than usual, her arms tucked tightly to her sides. She wasn't confident. She was calculating. I watched until her figure disappeared into the darker curve of the road. Only then did I let the curtain fall. Moments later, the back door clicked softly. Lucas stepped inside, closing it behind him as quietly as possible. His breathing was shallow. He'd clearly jogged through the alley to loop around. "She gone?" he whispered. "Yes," I said, drawing in a steady breath. "But she knows something shifted." Lucas nodded, face grave. "She will act fast now. You gave her nothing, and that scares her more than anything." He paced for a moment, running a hand through his hair. "Listen," he said, turning toward me. "We're almost out of time. Once she senses she's losing grip on her narrative, she'll switch strategies. Panic won't look like panic. She'll come across more affectionate, more attentive, maybe even vulnerable." I almost laughed, not because any of this was funny, but because I had felt that shift once before. "She'll pretend to break?" I asked. "Oh yes," Lucas said, "and she's good at it. Very good." He sat down across from me, voice firm. "She'll cry. She'll confess things that make her seem human. Hurt." Lucas looked up sharply. "She will," he said without hesitation. "She'll twist everything, make you the paranoid, overprotective mother interfering with their relationship." My throat tightened. "She's already planted seeds before," I whispered. Little comments about me being forgetful, dramatic, stressed. Lucas sighed heavily. "Exactly, and now she'll water those seeds. Tonight gave her proof that she needs to act." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Lucas sat straighter, watching me with new respect, maybe even awe. "Then we start tonight," he said. And he opened his bag. Inside wasn't what I expected. A voice recorder, a notebook thick with handwritten timelines, screenshots printed out and organized with dates, a USB drive, a sealed envelope. My breath caught. "You prepared all this?" I whispered. He shrugged, but his voice was tight, careful. "I've been documenting everything she does in the office." I didn't know who I could trust, and I didn't have proof strong enough for the police. But with your testimony, with your first-hand experience, we can connect everything. He slid the envelope toward me. "What's in it?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked directly into my eyes. "It's something you should read when you're ready. It's about what her actual plan with the inheritance is, and why she thinks you're the only obstacle left." A chill spread slowly through my body. "Why would I be the only obstacle?" I asked quietly. Lucas hesitated, then said, "Because Benjamin trusts her blindly, and because she made sure of that from the beginning." A slow, aching fear curled around my ribs. "What did she do?" Lucas's jaw tightened. "She chose him," he said. "Not for love, for advantage, for money, for control." "I know that," I said softly. "But what did she do to him?" Lucas exhaled. "Eleanor, she manipulated him from day one. Every insecurity, every doubt, every weakness, she used them." He paused. "She's been isolating him emotionally for months, maybe longer." I closed my eyes. A familiar ache blossomed inside my chest. The ache of a mother realizing something was wrong long before anyone else listened. "She made him believe he was lucky she loved him," Lucas added quietly. "And people who believe that never see what's happening to them." My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "Lucas," I whispered, "is he in danger?" Lucas didn't blink, didn't look away, didn't soften. "Yes," he said. The word hit the room like a physical blow. Quiet, heavy, undeniable. I steadied myself. "Then we stop her." Lucas nodded. "We will. But there's something you need to know." His voice lowered, growing darker. "Madison isn't just lying to him." He leaned forward. "She's preparing him for something." A chill spilled down my spine. "For what?" I asked. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the ticking clock on the wall. Then I whispered, "Lucas, what's in that envelope?" His expression changed. Just slightly, but enough to tell me that whatever was inside would change everything. "I'll tell you," he said softly. "But you should open it yourself." I reached for it slowly. My heart beat loud in my ears. But before I could break the seal, someone knocked on the front door again. Lucas froze. I froze. 3 soft knocks, a pause, then 2 more. My blood ran cold. Lucas whispered, "That's not her." And then, a familiar voice, muffled but frantic, came through the door. "Mom? Mom, are you awake? We need to talk, now!" It was Benjamin, and his voice was shaking. Benjamin's voice, on the other side of the door, didn't sound like my son. Not the son who used to run barefoot through my kitchen. Not the son who hugged me so tight the day he left for college. Not even the son Madison had slowly reshaped into someone quieter, smaller, unsure. No. This voice was strained, uneven, worried, almost desperate. "Mom, please," he said again, knocking harder. I just need to talk to you." Lucas and I locked eyes. Not her. Not a stranger. Not danger. With someone in danger. My son. I nodded at Lucas. He moved into the hallway, slipping into the shadows where he couldn't be seen. He pressed himself against the wall, silent, alert. I took a shaky breath. My fingers grazed the envelope on the table, still unopened, still holding truths I wasn't sure I was ready for. Then, I unlocked the door. Benjamin stood there under the dim porch light, shoulders hunched, hair a mess, eyes red like he hadn't slept or had cried. "Mom," he breathed out, stepping inside before I could even invite him. He looked lost. He paced across the room like the floor was burning under his feet. "I don't know where to start," he said, hands trembling. I know it's late. I know I shouldn't just show up, but I didn't know what else to do." "Sit," I whispered. He shook his head immediately. "No, I can't sit. If I sit, I'll fall apart." My heart clenched. "Benjamin," I said softly, "what happened?" He stopped pacing, and that silence, that stillness, scared me more than any scream ever could. He swallowed hard, breathing unsteadily. "It's Madison," he said. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face calm. "What about her?" He ran both hands through his hair. "She said something tonight. Something that I don't know how to process." He turned to me with eyes full of a pain I hadn't seen since he was a child. "She said you're trying to turn me against her. There it was, the first strike. And that you've been acting unstable," he whispered. "She said you're imagining things because you feel threatened by her." My throat tightened. Lucas, hiding in the hallway, closed his eyes like he'd predicted every word. Benjamin continued, voice cracking. "She said you showed up at the restaurant earlier and tried to listen in on her call." Blood ran cold in my veins. She said you've been suspicious and distant, and that you're trying to ruin our marriage because you never liked her." A lie wrapped in desperation. I breathed in slowly, letting the silence stretch. Not defensive, not panicked, just steady. "Do you believe that?" I asked quietly. Benjamin looked wounded, torn, and very, very confused. I don't know," he whispered. "I don't want to believe it. But she sounded so scared, Mom. She said you were acting strange. She said you're—" His voice broke. "She said you're not the same person you used to be." Oh, how manipulative. How perfectly timed. How rehearsed. But then Benjamin sank onto the couch. His shoulders slumped. His head dropped into his hands. His voice cracked. "But the thing is, she didn't look scared, Mom. She looked angry. And I've seen her angry before, but never like this." He exhaled shakily. "And I don't know why, but something told me she was lying. I felt it. And now I'm terrified I'm missing something." He looked up at me suddenly. "Mom, please tell me. Is something going on? What am I not seeing?" The room went still. Lucas's breath stopped in the hallway. This was the moment. The moment everything could shatter, or everything could finally begin to heal. I moved closer to my son, but slowly, letting him see the truth in my eyes. "Benjamin," I said softly, "I love you. That has never changed. And I would never, ever try to hurt your marriage." He blinked quickly, his throat tightening. "But there are things you need to know," I continued. "Things about Madison. Things she's hidden from you." He stiffened and whispered, "Mom, what do you mean?" I glanced toward the envelope on the table. The envelope that Lucas had brought. The one that held the truth. The one that Madison would do anything to keep him from reading. I walked toward it. Benjamin followed my eyes. "What's that?" he asked. I lifted the envelope slowly, my hands steady now. steady in a way they hadn't been in months. "This," I said quietly, "is part of the story she never wanted you to hear." Benjamin's expression shifted from confusion to fear to something else, something like readiness. He reached out. "Can I see it?" Before I could answer, before he could take the envelope, a sharp sound echoed from outside. A car door. Fast, hard, panicked. Benjamin's face went white. "That's her," he whispered. Lucas stepped out of the hall and stood beside me. "Then she's early," he said softly, "and that means she knows." Footsteps rushed up the porch steps. Then, Madison's voice, trembling with forced fragility. "Ben, baby, please open the door. I'm scared." Benjamin's jaw tightened. He looked at the envelope. He looked at me. He looked at the door. And for the first time, he didn't run to her. He didn't defend her. He didn't collapse under her panic. Instead, he whispered, "Mom, don't hide anything. Not anymore." The doorknob rattled. "Ben, please." Benjamin stand. When Benjamin said, "Open it," something inside me shifted. Not fear, not anger, something steadier, something that had been waiting months to finally breathe. I walked toward the door, Benjamin right behind me, Lucas standing like a quiet shadow at my side. Madison's silhouette trembled through the frosted glass. She kept knocking, small, frantic taps, as if she wanted to sound scared instead of furious. "Ben, please," she whispered through the door. "I didn't know you left." I was worried. Worried. That woman wouldn't know genuine worry if it sat across from her at dinner. I turned the lock slowly. The click was small, but her breath hitched the moment she heard it. I cracked the door open. Madison rushed in like she was escaping a storm, though the night outside was calm as a sleeping lake. Her eyes darted around, fast, calculating, until they landed on Benjamin. "Oh my God, there you are," she gasped, reaching for him. "I've been calling and calling. Why weren't you answering? I was freaking out." Benjamin didn't move. He didn't reach for her. He didn't soothe her. He simply said, "Stop." One word, soft, but enough to freeze her. Her smile faltered. Her eyes flickered. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw her real expression slip through the cracks. Cold, hard, annoyed. Then she noticed Lucas. Her whole face stiffened. "What is he doing here?" she demanded. "Madison," Benjamin said, calm but sharp. "Sit down." She turned to him, voice small, fake small. "Ben, why are you talking to me like that? I'm so confused." But she sat, perched on the edge of the couch, like a bird ready to fly out a window. I stood beside the table, the envelope still in my hand. And Madison saw it. Her pupils tightened, her breathing hitched, barely detectable, but I'd learned to read her, the way a mother reads a storm rolling in. She forced a smile. "What's that?" Her voice almost sweet enough to pour on pancakes. Lucas spoke before I could. "It's the truth," he said quietly. Madison's head snapped toward him. "I wasn't talking to you." Benjamin stepped between them. "Madison," he said, "you told me Mom was acting unstable, that she was making up stories, that she's trying to turn me against you." Madison blinked, hands trembling, too much trembling. She always overplayed her emotions when cornered. "I didn't say that," she whispered. "You did," Benjamin replied softly. "And you said she was imagining things, hearing things, misunderstanding things." Madison swallowed, her eyes bouncing between us. I was just worried, she said. Your mother hasn't been herself. You know that. Stop, Benjamin said again. And this time he sounded like a man who'd finally found the edge of his patience. He pointed at the envelope in my hand. Whatever's in there, he said. You knew about it, didn't you? Madison's breath shook. Her hands tightened. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with the calculation of someone measuring their next lie. I don't know what that is, she murmured. Her voice wasn't matching her face. Her face wasn't matching her eyes. Nothing lined up. Then you won't mind if I read it, Benjamin said. She froze. Her chest barely moved. Her lips parted just enough to release a shaky breath. And that silence, that tiny, fragile second where she didn't answer, was louder than any confession. I stepped forward and handed the envelope to my son. His fingers brushed mine. He was shaking too, but not from fear, from truth. Finally, truth. He opened the flap, pulled out the stack of papers. Madison's voice cracked. Ben, please, let's just talk privately. No, he said. For once, we're doing this in the open. Her mask cracked again, sharp, thin lines spreading across her composure. Ben, don't do this, she whispered. He didn't look at her, not once. His eyes scanned the first page. His brows pulled together. His breath quickened. Then he turned to her slowly, very slowly. Madison, he said, voice barely above a whisper. What is this? She didn't answer. She didn't deny it. She didn't even pretend to be confused anymore. She just sat there, silent, trembling, because she knew exactly what he was holding, and she knew he had finally seen it. Madison stood frozen, her face pale, her hand gripping the back of the chair as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Benjamin didn't take his eyes off her. His hands were trembling, but his voice, low, hurt, shaking with disbelief, cut through the silence like broken glass. Tell me the truth, Madison, he said quietly. All of it. For a moment, she didn't speak. She simply stared at the envelope Eleanor had placed on the table, the documents Benjamin was now holding. Then, slowly, her expression shifted, not into guilt, not into regret, but into calculation. A subtle movement of the eyes, a tightening of the jaw. Eleanor saw it instantly. She'd seen that expression before. It was the same look Madison had when she thought she could talk her way out of anything. Madison finally exhaled shakily and forced a small, trembling smile. Ben, baby, I don't know what your mother gave you, but it's not— Don't, he snapped, a crack in his voice. Don't lie, not right now. His voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time, Madison's confidence wavered. She stepped forward, tears already gathering, too quickly, too perfectly. Ben, listen to me, she whispered, voice softening like warm honey. Someone is trying to set me up. I don't know who, I don't know why, but this isn't real. None of it. Eleanor watched him, the way he squeezed his eyes shut, the way his shoulders slumped. He wanted to believe her so badly. He always did. Madison saw it too. Her lips tightened. The tears vanished almost instantly, like a curtain dropping. Fine, she said sharply. If you want the truth, here it is. I handled things because your mother wouldn't. She's old, Ben. She forgets things. She loses track. That's enough. He stood up so quickly, his chair scraped across the floor. Don't talk about her like that. Not anymore. Madison's nostrils flared. Her tone sharpened with knives hidden beneath every word. Everything I did was for this family. You think managing her paperwork was easy? You think dealing with the mess she calls finances was simple? I took care of everything, because someone had to. By putting everything in my name? Benjamin demanded. By signing things behind her back? By accessing accounts you had no right to touch? Madison stayed silent. Silence was her admission. Eleanor felt the air shift. Her heart hurt, watching her son break apart in front of her. Anger, grief, confusion, all twisting inside him like a storm he couldn't escape. Did you ever love me? He finally whispered. Madison blinked, stunned. What? Of course I did. Of course I do. No, he said, his voice suddenly terrifyingly calm. I need you to answer honestly, just once. A long pause. Madison swallowed, looked away, looked back at him. And Eleanor saw it, the exact moment the truth slipped through Madison's mask. Love, Madison murmured, her voice brittle, defensive, is complicated. People do things. Stop, Benjamin said. Please, just stop. He took a step back, as if her presence physically hurt. Ben, I can explain. No, he whispered. You had years to explain. Years. Madison's breath hitched. Her eyes darted to Eleanor, full of barely veiled hatred. Hatred that she wasn't even trying to hide anymore. This is your fault, she spat. You poisoned him against me. Eleanor raised a brow. I didn't say a single word. You did this to yourself. Madison's chest heaved. He was mine, she hissed under her breath, and you took him from me. Benjamin recoiled. I'm not an object, he said, voice shaky but firm. You don't own me. You don't own anything here. Madison realized, finally, that she had lost. And her expression twisted into something cold. Eleanor said before Benjamin could respond. You will. Madison grabbed her purse, shoulders stiff, face hardening into a mask of bitterness. She marched toward the door, but before she left, she turned and threw one last sentence into the room like a grenade. You're both going to pay for this. The door slammed so hard, the windows rattled. Benjamin stood there, shaking uncontrollably, his entire world collapsing in one violent crash. Eleanor stepped beside him. For a moment, he said nothing. Then her son, her grown, weary, heartbroken son, leaned into her chest and whispered a single, shattered sentence. Mom, what do we do now? Eleanor gently placed a hand on his back. We finish what we started, she said softly, and we make sure she never hurts us again. Eleanor let Benjamin sit, guiding him slowly to the edge of the sofa. He looked empty, eyes red, breath uneven, hands trembling from the weight of what he just faced. For a moment, she simply sat beside him in silence, letting him breathe, letting the air settle again after the storm Madison left behind. Ben, she finally said gently, look at me. He lifted his head, eyes glassy. You didn't fail, she said. You didn't do anything wrong. Loving the wrong person doesn't make you weak. It just means you trusted someone who didn't deserve you. Benjamin closed his eyes, swallowing hard. I feel stupid, he whispered. Like I should have seen it earlier. like I ignored all the signs. You weren't blind, Eleanor answered. You were hopeful, and hope is never a mistake. For the first time since Madison left, some of the tension in his shoulders eased, just a little, enough for him to take a fuller breath. Eleanor reached over and gently squeezed his hand. We're going to fix this, together. Benjamin nodded faintly, but his voice trembled when he spoke again. She said we'll pay for this. Mom, she's not going to walk away quietly. Eleanor's expression hardened, steel beneath her calm features. I know, Madison doesn't lose gracefully, but she also doesn't get to control our lives anymore. He looked at her, desperation flickering in his eyes. What if she does something? She already did, Eleanor replied. Now it's our turn. But even as she said it, she felt the weight of Madison's threat. Someone like Madison didn't just leave. She plotted, she calculated, she struck when it hurt the most. And Eleanor had no intention of letting her near her son again. Later that evening, the house felt strangely quiet, like the air itself was holding its breath. Benjamin sat at the kitchen table, staring at the scattered documents Eleanor had uncovered earlier. Signatures forged, transfers made, notices hidden. Madison's fingerprints were everywhere. Eleanor stood by the counter, boiling water for tea, watching him silently. You don't have to go through all of it tonight, she said. I need to understand what she did. Benjamin murmured without looking up. Every detail, every lie. Eleanor walked over and placed a warm cup in front of him. You will, but not like this. Not when you're exhausted, angry, heartbroken. He held the cup but didn't drink. If I stop, I'll start thinking about her again. That's normal, Eleanor said softly. You can love someone and still see who they truly are. His voice cracked. I loved her so much. I know. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, suffocating, full of questions neither of them were ready to ask. After a long moment, Benjamin took a deep breath. She won't give up, he whispered. She always finds a way to get what she wants. Eleanor nodded. Then we make sure what she wants is out of reach. He stared at her. How? We gather everything, she said, her tone calm and strategic. Every document, every email, every transaction. The more we know, the stronger we stand. For a moment, Benjamin studied her, seeing something new in his mother, strength he hadn't fully recognized before. You're not scared of her? No, Eleanor said, because I know what she is. And what's that? A woman who depends on lies to survive. And lies always crumble. Benjamin finally took a sip of tea, the warmth soothing the tightness in his chest. I can't believe she blamed you, he said quietly. After everything. Eleanor smiled sadly. People like Madison always blame the person they can't manipulate. That made him pause, because he knew it was true. Night settled deeper outside. The house wrapped in silence, except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Benjamin stood and walked toward the window, staring at the empty driveway, the faint streetlights, the darkness stretching beyond. She said she would make us pay, he murmured again. Eleanor joined him at the window. She said that because she lost control. That's all. But she still might do something. Yes, Eleanor admitted. which is why we'll be ready." Benjamin turned to her, brows drawn. "What if she comes back?" "She won't," Eleanor answered, her voice firm. "Not if she realizes there's nothing left here for her to take." Benjamin exhaled shakily. "I don't know who I am without her," he confessed softly. "She's been everything for so long." "You're still you," Eleanor said, "just without the cage she built around you." His eyes slowly filled with tears he couldn't hold back anymore. And before he could break again, Eleanor gently took his hand. "Ben, healing isn't instant, but you won't do it alone. Not anymore." He leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers like he used to as a child, seeking comfort he didn't have to earn. "I'm scared," he whispered. "I know," she said, "but we're stronger than she thinks." A pause. "And now," Eleanor added quietly, "we prepare for whatever she does next." I didn't sleep that night, not really. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the way the house breathed. Old homes do that. They creak, they sigh, they hum, like they're remembering, but beneath all that, something else hung in the air. A feeling, a pressure. Like a storm creeping toward us with its claws, dragging across the sky. Benjamin was downstairs early, pacing the kitchen floor. I could hear the light thuds of his footsteps through the vent. He wasn't angry anymore. He was something worse. Quiet, cold, focused. I was about to head down when I heard his phone vibrate on the counter. One vibration, then another, then a third. Longer, sharper, almost frantic. I could tell from the way he stopped moving that he'd noticed too. I descended the stairs slowly, careful not to make noise, and by the time I reached the last step, Benjamin was frozen in place. His eyes were wide, his jaw clenched. His hand trembled just slightly as he stared at his phone. "Ben?" I whispered. "What happened, honey?" He didn't answer. Not at first. Instead, he turned the phone around so I could see the screen. And when I read it, my chest tightened so suddenly I had to grip the railing. It was Madison. "You think you won, Benjamin? You think that letter changes anything? Delete it. Burn it. Forget it. Because if you don't, I swear, your mother won't survive what I'm about to do." For a moment, just a moment, I felt everything stop. My breath, my pulse, my thoughts. It was the kind of message that doesn't just threaten, it poisons. It infects the room with fear. Benjamin inhaled sharply, his voice shaking with something between rage and terror. "She's threatening you, Mom. She's actually—" "I know," I whispered, placing a hand over his. "She's lashing out. She's scared. Scared people don't say things like that." His voice cracked. "Mom, I should have protected you better." I shook my head. "No, no, sweetheart. I'm fine. I'm not afraid of her." But I was. Not of her physically, but of what a desperate person could do when cornered. Madison wasn't stupid. She wasn't reckless. She was calculating, and that made her dangerous. Benjamin paced again, rubbing his forehead. "This is exactly what Dad would have warned me about. Someone who thinks threats are leverage." I stepped closer. "Ben, what are you going to do?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the message again, then slowly exhaled. "We're not responding. Not yet." He placed the phone face down on the counter. "She wants attention. She wants panic. She wants control. We're not giving it to her. I nodded, though a part of me wished, desperately, that he would at least tell her to stay away. But then, bzzzt, the phone vibrated again. Benjamin stiffened. I felt my stomach twist. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and exhaled, this time in. "What now?" I whispered. He read aloud. "Don't bother blocking me. I'm coming over." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Not next week. Not tomorrow. Now." Benjamin cursed under his breath, a sound I'd rarely ever heard from him, and grabbed his jacket. "Mom, stay behind me. If she shows up here acting crazy—" He stopped, breathing hard. I placed both hands on his shoulders. "Listen to me, Ben." My voice, despite my fear, came out steady, the way a mother's voice must when her child is standing at the edge of something dangerous. You don't fight fear with fear. You don't meet chaos with chaos. Let's stay calm. He swallowed hard. "I'll try, but if she comes here screaming or threatening you—" I squeezed his arm. "We'll handle it. Together." He didn't argue, but the look in his eyes, that fire, that desperation to protect me, told me this wasn't going to be simple. Not anymore. And then, just as he stepped toward the door, a shadow passed across the frosted glass window. A silhouette. Someone standing on the porch. Benjamin froze. His chest rose and fell in sharp, deep breaths. He didn't need to say it. We both knew who it was, and the storm had finally arrived. I swear, there are moments in life when even the air forgets how to move. That's what it felt like, as that silhouette hovered behind the frosted glass, still, motionless, like it wasn't a person at all, but a warning carved in the dark. Benjamin stood a step ahead of me, shoulders tight, breath sharp. I could feel the heat of his worry coming off him. My boy always carried his emotions in his chest. And now, that chest rose and fell like he was preparing for a fight he never wanted. The knock finally came. Not loud, not angry, just tap, tap, tap. As if whoever stood there already believed they owned the room inside. Benjamin's jaw clenched. He looked back at me, silently asking if I was ready. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. He reached for the doorknob, his hand shaky, but his stance firm. And when he opened it, there she stood. Madison, but not the crying, frantic woman I'd imagined. Not the furious one either. No, she looked composed. Hair slicked back, face blank, eyes steady, like polished stones. Cold, reflective, unreadable. And that smile, Lord help me, that thin, faint smile she offered, wasn't a smile at all. It was the kind of expression people wear in courtrooms, or funerals, or when they've already decided the ending of a story and are just waiting for everyone else to catch up. "Benjamin," she whispered softly, as if she'd just dropped by to return a borrowed dish. "May I come in?" Her voice made my spine prickle. Benjamin didn't move. "I don't think that's a good idea." Madison blinked slowly, not offended, not surprised, almost amused. "Sweetheart," she said, tilting her head, "your tone is making this bigger than it needs to be." My God, that calmness, that quiet arrogance, it was more terrifying than any yelling could have been. Benjamin exhaled through his nose. "Madison, You threatened my mother. Her eyes slid to mine. Oh, Eleanor, are we really taking everything so literally? Her voice carried a softness that wasn't soft at all. It was the softness of a blade wrapped in silk. I was emotional. People say things. Surely you understand? I stepped closer to Benjamin. Madison, you said you're coming to do something. That's not normal. That's not a slip of the tongue. She didn't flinch, didn't break eye contact. You read my messages without hearing my heart, she murmured. You've always misunderstood me. Benjamin let out a humorless laugh. Misunderstood? You told someone on the phone that you're pretending for inheritance money. Her eyes sharpened. Finally, a crack in the mask, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. People vent, she said, shrugging lightly. People exaggerate. I was frustrated. You two make assumptions and I respond dramatically. That doesn't mean it's true. I wanted to believe her. God knows I did. But something inside me, something deep and old and motherly, whispered, she is dangerous. Benjamin stepped back slightly, blocking me more fully. What do you want, Madison? Her gaze drifted between us, slow and deliberate. I came, she said, to fix things before they fall apart. That's what adults do. The way she said it, like a threat disguised as wisdom. And, she added softly, to make sure no one makes mistakes they'll regret, especially at this delicate stage of our family. I felt the words slide under my skin. Delicate stage, fix things, regret. Those weren't peace offerings, they were warnings. Benjamin's voice hardened. We're not talking inside the house. Say what you need to say. Madison's smile stretched just slightly, not wide, but sinister in its subtlety. All right, she whispered. Then listen carefully. She leaned forward, hands clasped in front of her, like a polite schoolteacher. I am not leaving this marriage without getting what I deserve. Not emotionally, not financially, not socially. If you try to humiliate me with baseless accusations, it will complicate things. Her eyes flicked to me again. And I don't want Eleanor dragged into something ugly at her age. My breath caught. There it was. The real voice. The real person. Cold. Calculated. Quiet enough that the neighbors wouldn't hear. Sharp enough that we'd never forget. Benjamin stiffened. Are you threatening my mother again? Madison stepped back, brushing invisible dust from her sleeve. No, she said sweetly. I'm giving you both a chance to choose the peaceful path, the sensible path. Then she turned, her heels clicking softly on the wooden porch. Halfway down the steps, she paused, looked back, and said, I'll return tomorrow. You'll have your decision ready. Then she walked away. No yelling, no anger, no panic. Just that cold, terrifying certainty. And the sense that tomorrow, something irreversible was coming. After Madison walked away, the sun didn't seem to set normally. It slipped behind the horizon too quickly, like it was trying to hide from what tomorrow might bring. Benjamin locked the door the moment she disappeared down the sidewalk. Not because he thought she'd come back immediately, but because it felt like the only control we still had. He stood there a long time, his hand still resting on the deadbolt. His shoulders rose and fell with the weight of everything we just heard. I finally whispered, "Ben, come sit down, honey." He didn't move. Not until I gently touched his arm. Then his breath shuddered, like he'd been holding it in for minutes. We sat at the kitchen table, the place that had held birthday cakes, family dinners, laughter, and now a silence that felt like it was made of glass. Dot. Benjamin rubbed his eyes with the palms of his hands. "I don't get it, Mom," he said, voice strained. "How did I miss this? How did I marry someone who could talk like that, act like that?" I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. It felt cold. "You loved her," I whispered. "When we love, we try to see the best, even when the truth is waving its arms in our face." Benjamin exhaled, a sad, broken sound. "She threatened you, and she said it like she was negotiating a business deal." "You did the right thing," I told him. "Exposing the truth takes strength, and she knows it. That's why she's panicking." He laughed softly, bitter. "She didn't look panicked." "No," I said quietly. "She looked prepared." Those words hung in the air between us. He swallowed hard. "Mom, what if she tries something tomorrow?" I held his hand tighter. "We'll face it together. She doesn't get to control this narrative. Not anymore." He nodded, but the fear in his eyes told me he wasn't convinced. And truthfully, neither was I. That night, I lay awake again. The house was too quiet, too still. Every small sound felt amplified. The refrigerator hum, the soft groan of the floorboards settling, the wind brushing against the windows. I kept replaying Madison's expression in my mind. That look she gave me, not angry, not emotional, calculated, measured, as if I were a number in her equation. A piece on a board she intended to move or remove. I could feel something in my chest tightening with every memory of her words. "I'll return tomorrow. You'll have your decision ready." Decision? What decision? We weren't negotiating with a family member anymore. We were negotiating with someone who thought leverage was love. I sighed and flipped onto my side. My late husband used to say, "Eleanor, some storms don't show lightning. They show silence." That's Madison, a silent storm, a quiet one. Around 1:30 a.m., I heard footsteps, soft ones, uneven ones. Benjamin. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders and went downstairs. He was on the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. I sat beside him. "You're awake too," I murmured. "Couldn't sleep," he said quietly. "My mind won't stop. It keeps replaying everything. Her voice, her face, everything she said." He ran a hand through his hair. "And tomorrow, she'll be back." I placed my hand on his shoulder. "We don't know what she wants." "Yes, we do," he said, his voice suddenly flat. "She wants control. She wants to rewrite the story so she doesn't look like the villain. And you," I whispered, "are the crack in her mask." He exhaled slowly. I nodded. "I know. I've seen that type my whole life." He looked at me, eyes tired, haunted. "What do I do if she comes here yelling, or crying, or pretending she's innocent?" "You stay calm," I said softly. "You don't let her drag you into her performance. She wants chaos, because chaos confuses truth." Benjamin leaned back, head against the couch cushion. "She scares me now, Mom, and I hate that." I touched his cheek gently, the same way I did when he was a boy. "She scares you because you finally see her clearly." He closed his eyes, letting that truth sink in. We sat there together, a mother and her son, waiting for dawn like people wait for a verdict. Just as I was about to tell him to try sleeping again, we heard it, a sound outside. Not footsteps, not a voice. Something, a soft shift, a rustle, a presence. Benjamin stiffened. Look toward the window. I felt my skin prickle. Ben, I whispered. Do you think? He swallowed. I don't know. We both stared at the shadow moving across the front yard, and for the first time all night, I wondered if Madison had come before tomorrow. Benjamin and I didn't move at first. We just stared at the window, both of us holding our breath like two people pinned under the same fear. The shadow outside wasn't large, but it wasn't small either. It drifted across the front yard slowly, too slowly to be an animal, and paused near the porch. Benjamin whispered, "Mom, stay here," and stood up. "No," I whispered back immediately, clutching his arm. "You're not going alone." "Then we go together," he said, voice low but steady. We stepped toward the front window, careful not to make noise. The living room lights were off, so whoever was outside couldn't see us clearly, but we could see them. A figure, slim, still, facing the house. I felt a chill climb my spine. Benjamin leaned in slightly, his jaw tightening. "Mom, look." The figure stepped forward, just enough for the porch light to catch the outline of their face. Madison. Even from behind the curtain, I recognized that stance, that perfectly straight posture, that eerie calmness. She wasn't knocking. She wasn't calling out. She was just standing there, watching the house, waiting. Benjamin inhaled sharply. "What is she doing?" he whispered. "Looking for weakness," I murmured. "She wants to know if we're scared." He clenched his fists. "Well," she got her answer. "Ben," I whispered firmly, "you do not go out there. Not tonight." "I wasn't going to," he said. "But why come now? Why show up after midnight?" The answer was obvious, painful, and true. "Because she didn't expect you to confront her," I said. "And people like Madison, when they lose control, they panic quietly." He nodded slowly. "We shouldn't let her know we're awake." We backed away from the window. Careful, silent. Through the thin curtain, her shadow remained perfectly still, like a statue, like a warning. Minutes passed without either of us speaking. Eventually, the front gate creaked softly, a sound that felt louder than thunder in the dead of night. Benjamin peeked again. "She's leaving," he whispered. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. We waited until her silhouette disappeared down the street, before either of us moved again. Benjamin sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "This is bad, Mom. She's not thinking normally. Who does that? Who comes to their in-laws' house at midnight after everything?" "Someone who is losing control," I said softly. "Someone who wants to intimidate us." He laughed bitterly. "Well, mission accomplished." I touched his shoulder. "No, we're shaken, not defeated." He looked at me, eyes bleak. "She's dangerous." "I know. And tomorrow, she'll show up like nothing happened." "I know that too." He was silent for a long moment before whispering. "What if she tries to twist everything? What if she tries to say I threatened her?" I exhaled slowly. "That's why we keep the plan. We stay calm, organized, and documented. You have the recording. We have the messages. We have her coming here tonight. Even that shows instability. His eyes widened a little. You think she came to check if we'd weaken overnight? More than that, I said. I think she came to see if she still had influence. Benjamin leaned back, running a hand down his face. And she saw nothing, he muttered. We didn't go to her. We didn't call her. We didn't open the door. That's exactly why she'll return tomorrow, I said. She isn't done. Around 3 a.m., Benjamin finally fell asleep on the couch. I covered him with a blanket and sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. My son, my only child, dragged into a storm he never deserved. I brushed his hair gently, the way I did when he was little. You're going to get through this, I whispered softly. I promise you. But inside, I felt the tremble of what tomorrow might bring. Madison wasn't backing down. Not after showing up in the middle of the night. No. She was preparing. Repositioning. Planning her next move. And whatever happened tomorrow, whatever she came to demand, whatever lies she brought with her, it would be the beginning of the final confrontation. The day everything would come to light. The day we would finally know what Madison was truly capable of. After that day at the restaurant, something inside me just wouldn't calm down. It was like carrying a weight on my chest that wouldn't let me breathe right. Josh wasn't acting like himself anymore. His smile wasn't real. His laugh felt forced. And the whole vibe in their house, man, it just felt off. And Elena, she was acting like the world's best daughter-in-law, smiling, cooking, talking sweetly. But behind her eyes, something was wrong, like she was constantly hiding a plan. But no matter how much she pretended, I could still hear her voice from that day playing in my head like a cursed recording. No one will ever know. I'm just pretending until I get the inheritance. Those words weren't going anywhere. That night, I drove to Josh's place. Elena opened the door with this big, sugary smile, like she was auditioning for some perfect wife commercial. Mom! Oh my gosh, you surprised us! Come in! Yeah, too cheerful. Too practiced, Josh was in the kitchen. The moment he saw me, he hugged me tight. And I could feel it. My son was tired, stressed, and confused. His whole energy was drained. Mom, I need to talk to you, he said quietly. I felt my stomach twist. What happened, sweetheart? He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't know what's going on with Elena anymore. She's always on her phone. She stays distracted. It feels like she's slipping away from me. Every word hit like a punch. Because I knew she was slipping away. She already had one foot out the door. She was just waiting for Josh's inheritance before running. But I couldn't just blurt everything out. What if I was wrong? What if I misunderstood something? One wrong sentence and I could blow up my kid's whole marriage. Josh leaned against the counter. Mom, do you think she still loves me? Or is she just going through something? My heart broke seeing him like that. Before I could answer, Elena walked back in holding a bowl. I brought dessert. Made it fresh, she said, smiling confidently. But her hands were shaking. Just a little, but enough for me to notice. Josh acted normal, took a bite, complimented her. Me? I watched her like a hawk. And in that moment, I knew one thing clearly. I couldn't let this woman ruin my son's life. The next morning, I made a decision. No more guessing. No more hoping she'd magically guilt-trip herself into honesty. I needed facts, so I started checking things quietly. Her socials, her old job ties, anything that could reveal what she was hiding. And then something popped up that made my blood run cold. Elena had been calling one man, Daniel, almost every day. Long calls, hours-long calls, always when Josh was at work. And get this, they met at the same cafe on the same day at the same exact table. Every damn week. That wasn't innocent. That wasn't just a friend. That was a pattern. I froze. My hands literally felt numb. But I stayed calm. That's good, Josh. You two go. Talk it out. I paused. But I'll be there too. Not at your table. I'll just sit somewhere else. I need to see something with my own eyes. Josh looked confused. Why would you? I cut him off gently. Sometimes a mother just knows when something's not right. I didn't tell him what I already knew. Not yet. Because the next 24 hours, they weren't just going to change Josh's life. They were going to expose everything Elena had been hiding. And once the truth came out, there would be no going back. I swear, the air felt different that night. Not cold, not warm, just heavy. Like the whole universe was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd do next. Josh had dressed up a little, trying his best to look hopeful even though the poor kid's eyes looked tired as hell. I could tell he'd been overthinking everything, every word, every look, every tiny shift in Elena's mood. And Elena? She came out of the bedroom wearing this soft peach dress. Hair curled, like she was prepping for some Hallmark movie date night. She looked pretty, yeah, but pretty doesn't hide guilt. Not from a woman my age, not from a mother. Ready? She asked him with that polished smile she always used in public, the one that never reached her eyes. Josh nodded, forcing a laugh. Yeah, let's try to have a nice night. I stayed behind them as we walked into the restaurant. They didn't know I had already asked for a corner booth. Far enough to look like I wasn't spying. Close enough to hear every damn thing if I needed to. But I wasn't banking on just listening. I was waiting for her to slip. Because people like Elena, they always slip. Eventually. Josh and Elena got seated first. He pulled out her chair, sweet kid, raised right, and she giggled like she actually appreciated it. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. Hard to tell, with a woman who could lie that smoothly on the phone to another man. I sat down at my booth, menu open just to keep things natural. The place smelled like grilled chicken and garlic bread, and I could hear soft music playing overhead. But none of that mattered. My eyes were on her. And right on cue, she reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, turned the screen slightly away from Josh. Same old trick. Cheaters all do that slight angle tilt thing. They think nobody notices. But I noticed. Josh was trying to talk to her, bless his heart, asking about her day, her mood, their plans, and she kept saying, yeah, totally, while her thumbs typed under the table. And then, like a thunderbolt, her screen lit up big and bright with a name. Daniel. Oh, honey, she didn't just slip. She full-on face-planted. I saw Josh freeze. His whole face dropped, like somebody sucked all the air out of his lungs. He wasn't loud. He didn't yell. He just stared. "Elena," he whispered, voice cracking a little. "Why is he texting you with a heart?" She tried to swipe the notification away, but she was too slow. Josh had already seen it, and I had too. "Babe, listen, it's not what it looks like." He swallowed hard. "Elena, I'm not stupid." Her eyes darted around the restaurant, like she was scared someone she knew might hear this. But she wasn't scared of what she'd done. She was scared of getting caught. Josh leaned back, hands shaking. "You said you needed space. You said you were overwhelmed. But all this time..." He couldn't even finish his sentence. He just pushed his chair back and walked out like the ground was spinning under him. Elena stayed frozen for a few seconds, then grabbed her purse and ran after him, like she'd suddenly realized her safety rope snapped. Me, I didn't move. Not yet. Because I wanted my son to breathe, to get a second to feel what he needed to feel, without me rushing in. But after a moment, I rose, slow, steady, and walked outside. And there they were, Josh, standing by the car, breathing hard, wiping his face with the back of his hand, and Elena grabbing his arm like she was desperate to pull him back into her web. "Josh, please, you don't understand," she cried. He jerked his arm away. "Elena, I'm done looking stupid. Just tell me the truth. Are you with him?" She hesitated. And that hesitation was the answer he needed. Josh shook his head slowly, heartbreak written all over him. "Wow, so all this time, you were just waiting, weren't you? Waiting for my inheritance?" Her jaw fell open. "Who told you that?" Josh didn't answer. He just looked tired, broken. And that's when I stepped forward. Calm, slow, like a storm that finally decided it was time to hit. Elena's eyes widened when she saw me, like she knew the game was finally up. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "he doesn't need excuses. He needs the truth." And the truth was about to come out, whether she liked it or not. Elena froze the second I stepped closer, like she'd just seen the ghost of every lie she ever told coming to collect. Her eyes flicked between me and Josh, wide, scared, guilty as hell. "Mrs. Harris," she whispered, voice shaking, "please, I can explain." I let out a long, tired sigh. "Baby, explanations are for accidents. What you did?" I tilted my head. "That was a choice." She swallowed hard. Josh stared at her, jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. "Elena," he said quietly, almost too calm, "just tell the damn truth, please." That boy had loved her so deeply. He deserved at least that much. Elena looked around the parking lot like she wanted an escape route. The neon restaurant sign flickered above us, casting this cold bluish glow across her face. She looked small, cornered, and for a second, I wondered if she'd finally choose honesty. But then she breathed out, slow, shaky, and said, "I wasn't cheating, Josh. Daniel is just a close friend. You're overreacting." Josh laughed. Not a happy laugh. A broken, stunned, "how the hell did I end up here" laugh. "A close friend?" He repeated, shaking his head. "Elena, he told you he loves you. I heard you. At the restaurant. On the phone. I heard you." Her face went pale. She knew the walls were closing in. "Josh, that was you lying," he cut in. "Just tell me. Stop playing with me." Silence. Heavy, cold, the kind that makes your chest ache. And finally, she dropped her shoulders. Her whole performance fell apart. "Fine," she whispered. "Fine. Yes. There's something between us. But I wasn't going to leave you. Not yet. Not yet." Those two words hit harder than a punch. Not "I'm sorry." Not "it was a mistake." Just "not yet." Josh inhaled sharply, blinking back tears. Wow. So I was a placeholder? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. That's when I stepped in, slow and steady. Not to yell, not to curse her out, but to say the thing my boy needed to hear. "Josh, sweetheart," I said softly, placing a hand on his arm. "Sometimes the person you think you love is just the person you hoped they were." His breath shook. He finally looked at me, really looked at me, like a scared kid needing someone to tell him what came next. So I took a deep breath and said what a mother says when she sees her child breaking right in front of her. "You're gonna be okay. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but you're gonna be just fine." And Elena snapped. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away?" Her voice was sharp, desperate, like she was losing control of the last thing she could manipulate. Josh turned to her one last time. "No," he said quietly. "I'm walking towards something better." Her eyes filled with angry tears. "You're making a mistake!" Josh shook his head. "No, Elena. I made my mistake when I trusted you." He opened the car door and gently motioned for me to get in. "Mom, let's go." I looked at Elena one last time. This young woman who could have had a beautiful life if she'd chosen honesty over greed. "You know," I told her softly, "money don't buy peace, and lies don't stay hidden forever. Eventually, they all come home." She didn't answer. She just stood there, watching everything slip away from her hands. And we drove off, slow, quiet. The kind of quiet where you feel the world shift a little. Josh kept his eyes on the road, but I could see the pain sitting heavy on him. "Mom," he whispered, voice cracking, "why didn't she love me?" God, that question broke me. So I reached over, took his hand, and squeezed it tight. "Baby, she didn't love herself. And a person who can't love themselves is always gonna break the ones who try." He nodded slowly, tears falling silently. But he didn't fall apart, not completely, because he knew I was right there beside him. And in that moment, I realized something too. Sometimes life doesn't protect you from pain. It just gives you someone to walk through it with. And that night, I walked with my son, right out of the lie that almost stole his future. The truth didn't just come out, it freed him. And that was the ending he deserved.